Story 1. There are a lot of talented people in prison. Artists who can draw sexual pictures are popular. There are genuinely nice, decent people in prison who just did stupid things. Prison is very noisy 24/7. You get used to having no privacy, using toilets in front of cellmates, or having officers see you shower. Many inmates abuse the medical system to get strong painkillers like Lyrica or other drugs which can give a high if taken in larger doses. There are good education opportunities in prison if you avail of them. Some inmates even get limited access to laptops to do open university courses, though no internet. Lifers get more perks than temporary prisoners. They have nothing to lose really, so they are kept happy. Some prisons have Netflix. No choice as to what they put on, but still, some prisons even allow old Xbox 360 or PlayStation 2 consoles. Trusted prisoners often work as counselors and get training by the Samaritans. They save lives by helping prisoners cope, especially new prisoners. Suicides happen maybe once or twice per year. Prison becomes normal very quickly. You get used to the restrictions and just get on with it. You only reform if you really want it. Being in prison itself doesn't make it happen. Prison honestly isn't a good solution. For every person that comes out better, 10 come out worse, and with no fear of prison and better criminal knowledge and connections. Going back to work after getting out from a long sentence is hard. You get used to being lazy and surviving on little money. You kind of reject societal norms once that society has punished you so severely by taking years of your life. Ireland, by the way. Story 2. A lot of people don't realize how much trading goes on inside. It's not just cigarettes. Everything has value, from ramen noodles to stamps. The barter system is huge, and sometimes it feels like an economy all on its own. Story 3. The rape issue, while not non-existent, is much less common in real life than in the movies. I was incarcerated for 2 years, and it never happened once in either prison. There are occasional stories told by long-term prisoners about, "This guy 10 years ago," or, "I knew someone in a different jail." But it's not common. You can roll your eyes and walk away from almost any aggressive person, but if you run, you're going to get into trouble. What you say can get you into difficult situations in your cell. It's illegal to smoke in prisons in my country, so they have nicotine gum. They're sold in sleeves and go for $5 per sleeve. That's the inside currency. Transfers will cost you $90 for 10 sleeves. That's when they get someone on the outside to send money to your outside account, and you buy sleeves inside for them. Cards are popular. Canasta and Big Two were the games of choice in one prison. The other one had a bridge table that I joined. Don't ask, don't tell. The guy running around talking about how he's in for a serious crime is a liar. He's definitely a deflecting sex offender. The guys who are in for serious crimes are long-term prisoners and don't need to tell you why they're in. Generally, if you don't mess with people, they won't mess with you. Guards don't care, but they won't give you grief if you don't give them any. And the name of the game is patience. There are certain things you can request to purchase, like portable CD players and a fan. Expect to wait 3 months. They'll order it in a few weeks, it'll arrive a week after, and it will sit in the verification and clearance area for 2 months before they open it and give it to you. If you harass them, they'll put it in storage and you can have it when you're released. Other than that, personal packages and boredom. Story 4. You've heard of for-profit prisons, but it starts well before and ends well after prison. Everything has a cost. Parole, you pay a parole fee. Community service, you pay a community service fee. Court costs, you owe the state for part of the cost of you being in jail. Restitution, paying back the people hurt by your crime. Ankle monitor on your tab. Can't pay? Parole revoked, back to jail with no chance of reparole. You must serve your full sentence because you violated conditions of your parole. The biggest scams are the halfway houses. They were about $1,500 a month in my town to share a dorm room with another ex-con. Can't pay? Parole revoked, back to prison. And remember that you're supposed to be paying all this on whatever job you can get as a felon. Do you know how many jobs, like Wendy's or even Kroger, tell you to get out when you answer that you have a felony conviction? I couldn't work at a library. What, you think I'm going to steal a library book? If you have a substance-related conviction, and sometimes even if you don't, for example, me, You have to do regular drug testing. You're paying for that, of course. Can't pay? Back to prison. It was about $128 a month for twice monthly drug testing. And again, my conviction wasn't drug-related. My roommate did have a drug-related conviction, so he had to do 3 random drug tests a week that he had to pay for. He almost got sent back to prison, 2 out of 3 strikes, for testing dilute. That is, his urine was too watery. He was walking home in 95-degree heat, can't have a car at this halfway house, and was, you guessed it, drinking water. I did the math and I owed about $2,200 a month in mandatory court expenses. If I did not pay, I would go back to jail. That was something like 200 hours of work a month before taxes and not even considering food. And I had a fairly good job, especially for a convicted felon. But the best part was the judge that sentenced both of us owned the halfway house. He was a partial owner. Talk about cash for kids. The system is absolutely 100% designed to send you back to prison. There is simply no way a normal ex-con can get out of the cycle on their own. Edit. This was in one of, if not the most progressive towns in the country. I cannot imagine what it would be like in the Sheriff Joe Arpaio places of the world. Story 5. Never went to prison but got arrested before and spent a few days in jail. Chained next to a guy who was a repeat offender and taught his girlfriend, who also got arrested with him, sign language. Neither are deaf. They use it to signal each other in between cells. I always thought that was pretty interesting. Story 6. Prison is mostly boredom, trading items to get by, and staying alert to avoid trouble. The mental toll and overcrowding make it harder than people think. Story 7. Can only speak for Australian prisons, but the food can be incredible if you're lucky, and they let the prisoners cook. Every chef is on drugs and will eventually spend time locked up, so you can have the entire kitchen of a prison be top-class chefs. Seriously, the best crumb chicken I've ever had in my life was in Pentridge in the mid-90s. So crisp and full of flavor. 25 years, and I've never had anything that has come close to how nice it was. Wish I knew who cooked it so I could visit their restaurant. And hope you never end up somewhere that outsources it, because not even stray dogs would want to eat that. Story 8. It's a lot more relaxed than people would guess. Common knowledge of prison has come from media that dramatizes the conflicts and violence. There is conflict and violence, but unless one places themselves in a position to be targeted, it's unlikely they will be. Story 9. Women's prison is a smaller, more intense version of middle school. I was frequently harassed during my first 2 months. Prison definitely taught me to be strong. People are nice if they can tell you're not from that lifestyle. Most of the time, I avoided drama because my character and kindness protected me. If someone tried to start something, other women usually defended me. It's mostly talk, and if fights happen, they're not serious and usually about prison girlfriends or mutual acquaintances outside. It is as portrayed in the media. 90% married or not, regardless of how straight they claim to be, engage in sexual activities or heavy petting and hand-holding. Even more get into emotional or romantic relationships, even if they don't cross the physical boundary. It's boring. Depending on the program, you have to wake up at either 5 a.m. or 9 a.m. I was in the 5 a.m. group, and you get written up if you're caught lying down. It's really hard to have any sexual activity unless you're roommates, especially in a smaller facility where guards have little else to do, so they even police sharing headphones. I got written up once for letting my roommate use my mayonnaise in the cafeteria for dinner. You become very comfortable with having to strip down, spread, and cough. I had to do it at least 3 times a week. Most women gain a minimum of 30 pounds. Everything is processed, and any gym time you get is limited and has time constraints based on units. The food is terrible, so you often have to rely on commissary. I'm a chef, and the facility I was in had a toaster oven, so the girls loved me because I taught them how to make good food. But those who have spent a lot of time know how to be creative. It's incredible. We had women making egg rolls and Alfredo. No matter how nice the staff might be, you will always be reminded or treated like a subpar human being. Story 10. From my husband, best friend. From the color of the uniform to the color of the walls, every detail of a prison was thought about and placed to keep your mind numb and institutionalized. Story 11. Not a former prisoner, but used to work in a job that involved the prison system. 1. The sheer volume of paperwork prisoners do every day. Everything they do, everything they request, almost every little interaction with the facility involves paperwork. How normal a prison can feel, almost like any institutional setting, such as a hospital or university, with people hanging around, chatting, going to work, and going to class, until suddenly it very much doesn't. Story 12. French prisons have all the drugs, all of them. The guards know it, the director knows it, the government knows it. They don't try to stop it because stoned prisoners are easier to manage. Also, everybody has a phone even if it's forbidden. It reduces the pressure on the parlor waitlist. French prisons are horribly overcrowded. Story 13. Cell phones are extremely easy to get, and contrary to popular belief, it's not just the correctional officers bringing them in. That's actually less common than you think. Not a lot of people want to risk their job and benefits for their family for a bit of money. And inmates don't want to risk being thrown in solitary confinement for trying to proposition an officer. They also don't want to be seen talking privately to an officer and looking like an informant. There are other ways contraband can get in. Drones dropping contraband into the yard is common nowadays. There's also the old method of walking up and throwing it over the fence. My spot let inmates drive cars for certain jobs, sometimes even off prison property. We also had windows that opened and could be taken completely off by unscrewing some bolts. Every night after the count, a group of inmates would go out the window and grab alcohol, cigarettes, cell phones, and the big one was actually food. Usually dropped in a huge duffel bag in the woods behind the prison. A lot of them got picked up by their wives or girlfriends and hung out for a few hours. I know someone who got their girlfriend pregnant while doing that. When correctional officers noticed she was pregnant during a visit, he was put in solitary confinement and investigated. Not sure what happened after that. Eventually, someone informed, and 4 of them got caught. Story 14. How much just 1 year inside will change you? I spent 1 year in, and now my anxiety has tripled. I can't deal with large groups of people, even if it's family, and I catch myself always watching people, especially at work. Story 15. Here in Wisconsin, there is a volunteer organization that trains guide dogs. All guide dogs in this program are housed at a prison and trained by an inmate for a portion of each dog's puppy-raising process. Story 16. If you are on the spectrum, it is going to be very overstimulating. The fluorescent lighting, the cell phone that will not shut up, the texture of the scrubs you have to wear. Story 17. Correctional officers will not treat you like a human. Some of them are sadistic individuals who will do everything they can to get an inmate to lash out, so they have a reason to legally beat them black and blue. It is absolutely boring. Story 18. Spent 8 days locked in a psychiatric ward. Not the same, but I'm pretty sure that there's one thing in common. The only thing that matters is the thing you're doing or the next thing. Why did the prisoner stab a guy over a game of cards 3 weeks before his release? Because the only thing happening at that moment was that game. I remember waking up and getting a breakfast with terrible coffee every morning. But at 10 in the morning, we would get actual good coffee brewed by a small coffee machine in the play area. I would go back to my bed from 8 to 10 in the morning only thinking about that coffee. Story 19. When I went to jail in Los Angeles County, the first thing I noticed was how respectful, cordial, and polite everyone is to each other. If there is a problem between races, you respectfully approach the leader or shot caller of that race and talk about the dispute like politicians, with no animosity or anger, and it usually gets resolved. Sometimes it doesn't, and you are very calmly told that there will be conflict and bloodshed and to be ready for war. Story 20. Oh my God, the corruption of the guards is so prevalent. Just right out in the open, clear as day. Watching female guards cry when certain inmates were leaving. Female guards are all dressed up at work. Female guards disappearing into cells. Respect is a joke. No one gives it. If they think or say you're a pedophile, you're in trouble. It doesn't matter if your paperwork shows you're not a pedophile. The inmates will say you made your paperwork and it's fake. They have people on the outside saying you're a pedophile. I spent 4.5 years fighting because they said all that and that I looked like a pedophile. Everyone snitches. Inmates believe if you're the one being active or receiving oral, you're not gay. We all heard about a guy who was married with kids being released in a week, assaulting his cellmate every night. Guards don't care about you. A guard walked into the shower room and caught a bunch of inmates assaulting a small white inmate. The guard walked out and did nothing. It wasn't until 2 hours later that another guard found the inmate barely alive and covered in blood. Story 21. The trope of prisoners being out of touch with technology and news is utterly ridiculous. Other than TV and movies being available, newspapers get red cover to cover daily. Everyone will know what a new prisoner coming in was sentenced for if the new prisoner on the block got even the slightest news coverage.